It's Trends O'Clock. This is Trends KE with KK Cedric.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Whatever the time you're watching us, it depends from where you are watching us from. This is the Alternative Voice. Welcome back. It's yet another Thursday, and tonight we are having an amazing discussion here. I hope you're going to enjoy it. So let's have this discussion going, and you can send in your contributions through the links provided, and wherever you're watching, if it's on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, you can send your contributions there and we will be reading through them. So tonight we are discussing some politics, and the topic of discussion tonight is to do with the manifestos. Recently, Azimio la Umoja released their manifesto, and we want to know what is in it for the youth and generally the politics around the country. What do you think and where do you think the youth are featured the most? So let me know what you think in the comments section, and we shall get it going with an amazing panel I'm having here tonight. So for a second time, I'll be introducing to you this gentleman here. I'm talking about William Dekker. You remember last time we had him on the show and he was talking to us about communication in the workplace and how you can get yourself a job. Well, so after we get ourselves a job in this government, we want to hear from him what he thinks and where he thinks we can bet our money. So welcome to the show tonight, Dekker.
Thank you very much, Cedric. It's a pleasure always to be here on the show. Thank you.
And for the very first time here, we are having on the show Commissioner of the National Elections Board, ODM, that is Commissioner Cynthia Sintei. Welcome to the show, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Cedric. It's a pleasure to be able to have the discussion with you.
Yes, and we shall just get going into this discussion right off. And I'll bring you, because you have been a guest here once, Dekker. You shall be the one doing this introduction. So the youth generally right now, if I would put to you, let's say you are in the field and assume you are a candidate yourself. What do you think should be addressed majorly to the youth of Kenya?
Well, the youth of Kenya are definitely a section that you'd never ignore. You start by the statistics. 35 million of Kenyans out of the 2019 census, 35 million below the age of 35. So that is like 75% of this country's population is the youthful population. So that's a demographic entity you'd never want to ignore. Instead, you should harness so that you get some dividends out of it. Yeah. So you want to harness it in terms of economic opportunities, in terms of engagement in a number of issues, be it social issues, political issues, economic issues. But lastly, and more importantly, is the youth have lots of issues that definitely have to be addressed over time. We start from unemployment. Again, the figure 75% comes back. That 75% of those who are unemployed are young people. So how do you create opportunities for employment, but also for entrepreneurship for this youthful population? Then there are other aspects. Youth have not been engaged in a number of entities and discussions. How do you bring them on board? If it were me, the first thing I want to do is create a Ministry of Youth Affairs, because if you have a population that is more than 75% of the country, that's a whole entity that deserves a governance structure and engagement structure. So create a Ministry of Youth Affairs, and then definitely now harness other opportunities. I don't know if you're asking me to list all the 10 things I would want to do for the young people, but in a nutshell, I could introduce it as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dekker, and we shall be coming back to more of that. But let me bring in Commissioner. Commissioner, you are the commissioner, member of the Commission of ODM National Elections Board. From your side, do you think that ODM and generally Azimio la Umoja, and I'm talking from the point where Dekker has said that the youth should be included in the discussion, and one of the ways of including them in the discussion is making sure that they get into those elective posts and positions. Do you think ODM and the parties within Azimio la Umoja have done their part in making sure that the youth also get a chance into these elective posts?
Well, Cedric, I would want to introduce the fact that as I sit in the elections board, I'm the youngest member of the elections board. And in my view, ODM has really tried to include and make sure that the youth component is actually, looked at the point of being a political party. If you look at our legal committee, you will realize that at least 7 members of the legal committee are young people. And I'm talking about young people below 35. So I would like to imagine that what ODM has tried to do is involve the youth, because one of the biggest issues in this country right now is the fact that we have so many young people, like Dekker says, the percentage of around 75, including 29% of the youth in the economic age. That's between 18 and 34 years. And one of the things that has happened is for a very long time, the young people have not been involved in the decision-making tables. And when we talk about decision-making tables, it means the tables like which I sit at, where political decisions are made, because I believe that one of the most important things for young people is politics, even though you will realize that most Kenyan youth are indifferent towards politics without realizing that those are the spaces where policies are made that influence their everyday life, their inclusivity in, every space, being political, being economic, being social. And I feel like what the party has been trying to do for a very long time is bring the young people to that decision-making table and making them understand the context in which politics applies in their lives. So I would want to say that ODM has really tried, but even as we talk about the fact that he has tried, when you look at the Azimio manifesto, you'll realize that the tenet number 6, the hashtag inawezekana, actually speaks about young people in the context of being included in programs and harnessing their skills and equip them with resources to try and advance and make sure that young people have been taken care of. And you'll realize that right now, even as we speak in your show, we more would call you a content creator. You create content and pass it to young people, and this is a field or a space that the government might want to look into, being that the young people are the most digitally savvy people right now, and we can have digital products without people actually working physical labor. And this is a field where the government can harness and actually make sure that young people feel included and that are taken care of in the next government that is coming. And you'll realize that one of the most important issues that the Azimio Manifesto is speaking about is youth economic inclusivity. That the young people have, such big potential to contribute to the economic development and base of the country, but because of the indifference to politics, it may have been a very large issue for the government to incorporate young people, and knowing that, well, as governments are recycled in Africa, mostly for old people, young people have not had space. But the fact that now we sit in these spaces make sure that, we are the voice and we can actually advance the fact that young people can now come in, give ideas, and actually decide what happens for them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that good explanation. And before we proceed, Dekker, I wanted to ask you about this issue of jobs, because that's something that we had discussed with you earlier on, how young people can express themselves if they want to get jobs. But I'll get into that later on. I have a question that has arisen from recent trends online, and those trends arose from the manifesto that was launched by Azimio la Umoja when Raila Odinga mentioned the issue of mitumba and made in Kenya products. So let's try to take aside politics from the whole discussion, because what mainly makes such important discussions to go astray is because people address them from a political point of view. So I do know, and if you don't want me to let this out, that you yourself have a designer, if they are not several, and I would speak the same of the commissioner here. But now let's speak of the issue of mitumba products and the fact that it's already in the economy and it's helping several youth to earn their living. But then there is a conversation that is coming in of making products made in Kenya so that the same people can make money out of it. But now the conversation comes on the expense. Many people are saying that these products that will be made in Kenya will be very expensive. We can't afford them. Many of us can afford the mitumba products, which the Right Honorable was talking about. What is your 2 cents taking politics out of the country?
Well, my 50 cents, not even 2 cents. I have 50 cents. One, you've referenced to the manifesto itself. And I want to challenge young people to read that manifesto thoroughly, because the word youth is mentioned 47 times in a 44-page document, yet the phrase mitumba is not mentioned in that document. But then young people are quick to ride on a number of things, which also are subject to multiple interpretations. My comment on the mitumba thing, it's definitely pretty much, there's no fuss, there's no need for a fuss around it, because I don't think there's no government that has the potential to instantly ban the importation of used clothes within a single day. It's a thing that you do gradually, but for the better, that you ensure that you reduce the number of those that are brought into the country, especially those that do not have a lot of use for the people. You talk to the mitumba sellers, and there's a thread on Twitter where one of the person who has done the business talks about it and explains that by the time you get actually the bale that comes into the country, it's of no use to the normal ordinary Kenyan. So you're purchasing it for a fair amount of price, but then you feel that that is the economic value you get out of it because you purchased it at a cheaper price. But if this was manufactured locally and at a good scale, to the point where the balances have been done in economics of production or economics of scale, as they say it, then you have them at a cheaper price. Then there's a bigger economic value to everyone, to the person who sells it, the person who buys it, because you get quality, which has just been manufactured, but also to the bigger economy, because then you're talking about people employed in the manufacturing. We can never talk enough of creating job employment, yet we are the same people who are shunning opportunities for creating employment. So today you say 75% of young Kenyans are unemployed. We want to put them into employment. Where? It means we have to start by creating opportunities for employment through industries. And manufacturing has been the thing world over. Talk of China, that rapid growth is out of manufacturing. Even the mitumba that comes today, they are no longer ex-UK, ex-America. The biggest chunk is ex-China, which has been manufactured over there. Japan, industrialized through manufacturing. We talk of today German cars and a lot of things. Germany, manufacturing. So for us as a country, if we definitely want to create those employment opportunities, we have to look at manufacturing. The cost might look a bit expensive at the start, but on the long term, it's going to be for the better. Assuming we stay with the status quo, let's keep importing mitumba every single day for the next 30 years. Then how are you going to employ people? Even your purchasing power for that mitumba is going to go down because you won't be able to afford it because you're not employed. But if we start reviving the likes of Kikomi, Rivertex, Shona EPZ, and all those companies that have for the longest time contributed to the clothing industry, we create an opportunity for employment. But also look at it from the agriculture perspective. You're going to be creating again another opportunity for the cotton growers, something that has died for the longest time. Yeah. So if I was a young person, I would want to look at it objectively without looking at political affiliation and start looking at it from the long term. If mitumba is brought down on a gradual scale, of course not instant, if it's brought down on a gradual scale and then economics of scale are balanced to the point where we are now manufacturing enough that fits the demand of the country, then it's good for everyone. Everybody wins, yeah? Yeah, so that is because you asked my sentiments around mitumba. But we could talk around other opportunities for the young people, be it manufacturing and skills building. In that so-called manifesto that you've mentioned, I like a phrase within it that says ujuzi teketeke, which means you want to upskill young people, those who have sort of what you'd call semi-skilled. So you bring their skills to a level in which they can do something. There's another clause that talks about scaling up internships. Today you graduate and you're told you need experience, but you don't have internship. Today I know a number of people who are looking for internships. Itself, internship has become such a hard thing to get. I see that in the manifesto addressed. There are young people who have started their businesses, but you want to start running the business and you have lots of things to pay, or taxes from KRA, etc. I see a clause on tax holiday for about 7 years. Then there's young people who have stayed off employment ever since they graduated. But by the time you go check your help portal, you realize you have penalties exceeding months and months. And each month is 5,000 of a penalty if you don't pay. So I also see there's a clause around that. So if young people can start interrogating the manifesto, look at all the 47 times young people are mentioned in that manifesto. How does it resonate with you? Including different sections, as Commissioner said here. There's a whole section on economic inclusivity. There's a section on digitization. There's a section on engagement. All these, how does it resonate with you? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dekker, for that very eloquent 2 cents. You've said actually you've given your 50 cents on that discussion there, and it's great because this is a conversation that is very important, but the fact that it comes amidst politics makes people to not engage in it soberly because everyone is trying to take a side in the political arena. And Commissioner, let me bring you into this as well. I don't know if you will have anything to add on what Dekker said regarding mitumba and making made in Kenya products, but even as you do that, also try and get us into what the face of Azimio is going to put forward to make sure that they do appeal to the youth, mostly because this is politics and they are looking for votes, and you have to convince the youth that you have their best interests at heart so that they can vote for you. You can see on the other side, the deputy president has tried to run away with the issue of Hustler Nation, saying that he's minding the young people, he's minding the people who are at the bottom. He wants to move them from bottom up. What do you think is the face of Azimio in their quest to make sure that they capture the vote of the youth?
Well, Subject, we may want to start from the point of the Mitumba issue.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has been it has been taken out of context because people do not like contextualizing issues. And because we act like a very woke community, you'll realize that, these discussions emanate so much on Twitter because that's a space where, everyone has their rights to say the kind of nonsense. I will basically say nonsense because when you talk about Mitumba, you'll realize that, and as Dekker says, it is not mentioned anywhere in the manifesto. We are actually talking about made in Kenya products. And for example, if I'm buying a Mtumba shoe, I actually bought a rubber shoe some other time, and it's supposed to be Mtumba, and I bought it at 4,500 shillings. Okay? Now, if I'm buying a leather shoe and I come from a county that has, cow products like hide makes any leather product, it makes shoes, it makes bags. I am an ardent buyer of Kenyan products. You may have seen me walk around with, bags made of skin and hide. But if someone is able to produce these, within the context of, local products being available and incentives from the government, which means that one, we are thinking about reducing the tax or actually giving young people a 7-year gap of not, paying tax to the government, that should actually come at a much cheaper price because it means Sintei has 10 cows, and once I get, the hide and skin, the manufacturing plant is found in Narok. I'm not, using too much transport cost to be able to get that product to the market. It means I can actually be able to buy that shoe around 1,000 shillings instead of buying it at 4,500. And I don't know why Kenyans tend to imagine that, the Mtumba culture is actually a cheap culture. I saw someone talk about the thrift market, that so many young people want to look good and are getting these products at a very cheaper rate. we are not saying, or Azimio is not saying that once we get into government, then we are going to expel that immediately so that we don't have any mitumba coming into Kenya. Look at a country like Rwanda. It doesn't deal with mitumba. We actually get some of those mitumba from Rwanda to Kenya. How was Rwanda able to work around that and make sure that they were actually producing local clothes and local bags and local shoes and local products? Well, at the same time, you're talking about different levels in the manufacturing industry. You're talking about the policy level, you're talking about the physical labor level, you're talking about the market level, and that actually translates to employment of young people. Because we will agree between me and you, not everyone is actually doing what they're supposed to do if you're going to look at the kind of degrees you got in school. I may have gone to law school. I work in the political circle. My education might be in use, but I've seen people who actually did actual science, and someone is selling, bags in the market. There's a lady I buy my bags from. She's a graduate of biology. She's not able to put that degree into use because of the kind of job market we have. But if you're talking about giving incentives to these people, it means that they are able to produce and they are able to actually earn and take care of themselves and their families. You're looking at a situation where, and you will agree with me that most of the Azimio manifesto is actually borrowed from BBI. And I would say it's borrowed mostly from BBI because when you look at one of the things they talk about youth inclusivity, you're looking at a youth council. If you're talking about a youth council, it means that young people are there to actually be the voice of the millions out there. You're talking about around 35 million people. So this young or youth council is actually bringing in young people to talk about what they want, how they want, and exactly how the government is able to put that into context to absorb them as an economic age group that is able to actually give into the economy of this country and in so many other social contexts. So I hope that I've been able to answer the question you asked.
Yeah. You have answered it pretty well, and Dekker, as you are giving your remarks on Mitumba, I said I'll circle back to you on the whole issue of unemployment of the youth. And the last time you were here, you were telling us how we can talk our way into the job market. That was an awesome discussion you had there. But now, this job market, now from the political aspect, where is this job market that we have to talk our way into? What do you think that any government that is coming in place should strategically place and make a priority spaces that can create employment mostly to the youth?
Well, Cedric, you've boxed me to the corner. Now I have to feel like a politician who has a manifesto, and I have to think strategically on behalf of the politician. But it's fine. So it's definitely a good question you ask and a critical one. Where is the job market? We are promised jobs a million times, but clearly we don't see them. Yeah. But it takes a good government to realize that jobs have to be created. But more importantly, it's not the traditional way of creating a job in the office somewhere with a corner office or some desk, etc. I think we have an opportunity to leverage and what I called back previously. Because you look at, when you look at that percentage of
I just
sorry about the background. So then how are we going to create the jobs? One, we are going to upskill the young people who probably are within the semi-skilled range, because we will first of all want to look at what industries thrive the most. I mean, what industries sort of are the ones that create most of the time the employment. Look at the informal sector. Sometimes people call it the Juakali industry. So you go to the artisans. What can we manufacture in the largest scale? And then if there are people who don't have skills that can fit this market, how do we upskill them so that then they go right into it? And when they go right into it, what are we giving them to kickstart with? Probably some seed capital to start off. So if you are going to be making probably the back to school sanduku, or you're the one who is going to be making the nice energy saving jikos, you definitely have the skill now. So the government should have what they call, not really what they call, but they could give it any name, some sort of seed fund pot, where then they give young people capital to kickstart their work, of course, around the informal sector. Then that means we've already created an industry with lots of other employment where one young person gets in, employs another young person. The other place you want to create employment, of course, is now very much closer to the formal sector, or is the formal sector. We know young people to be innovators. Today, if you walked in any entity with young people, you'll always find that they're buzzing with ideas. And most of the time, these ideas are not transformed fully into the actual idea that they should have lived. So it's probably a business prospect. It's probably some form of innovation that is offering a solution, because there are so many processes a young person has to go through. First, establish a business, go source funds from potential funders. Then once you have the funds, set up the legal mechanisms to have this business running in a profitable format. So you have a way in which you provide that seed capital, yes, but you also have a way in which you provide enough capacity building or capacity strengthening so that young people with their ideas can transform those ideas into profit-making entities. Thirdly, is now go to the young people who have skills and they have entrepreneurship ideas, but also they have actually those startups that are already running. Give them a tax holiday so they don't have to go through so much in terms of running expenses that they cannot make the business profitable and they cannot employ other young people. So you give them a tax holiday, sort of tax incentives, a number of things that will pull more people who already have their small, medium, micro enterprises to keep running, because this is where you're going to employ people, not the already flooded existing job market. Because how many people can stay in government offices? How many people can work in the current NGOs? How many people can work in the current private sector? So it's looking into those three, just say 3 or 4. 1, upskilling so that you have enough skills for the informal sector. 2, going into those who are innovators, tapping into those innovation and moving them from just innovative ideas into businesses. 3, going into the small, medium, micro enterprises. Initially, we used to call them SMEs. Now I see there's MSMEs. Tapping into those, giving them tax holidays and all that. Then lastly, now you also want to ensure that young people who are coming now prepared for the job market now that we've created. So we want to go beyond the universities. There's the TVET, technical vocational training entities. How can you make more young people go all the way to that level so that every young person who walks around the street is not just qualified, but is skilled? Initially, we've been talking about educated. Now we want to talk more about young people being skilled, that you just don't have the knowledge, but you have the skill and ability to enter into the job space and work and deliver. Sometimes when we talked about entering the job space, we said that there are lots of job opportunities. What is lacking is the skills. Because if even our current companies and private sector, if there was so much skill that can expand the scope of what these companies are doing. And I could take any example. Let's use a common example that is always a safe one to use, Safaricom. So you have Safaricom, but you bring in more skilled and idealistic young people. They expand into other sorts of innovation. They bring them to Safaricom. Safaricom expands outside Kenya. If it expands outside Kenya, that means it employs more people. It makes more profit. More young people get employed. And that's how things are done, yeah? It's the same way manufacturing works. That you manufacture enough to export to the global market, not just the local market. When you are able to export to the local market, then you're already in a position you can break even. If we are manufacturing just for the local market, well, at some point it is going to be useful, but then for us to break even, it's going to be a long time. One way to explain these analogies, you have money in the house. You give yourself that money. You cook food within the house. So what? But if you're able to cook, you have money, you cook food in the house, you go sell it to other people. It means you get more money to cook more food. You open a kibanda, you get more money. Now you open a restaurant, you get more money. Now you open a hotel, you get more money. Now you open a hotel chain, you get more money, get more people employed. It's the way manufacturing also works, that you look at a market that can expand beyond the local one. Thank you.
Thank you, Dekker. That's an awesome explanation there. And you've talked about skills and education, and it has just reminded me that there are people with jobs who are looking for degrees, and there are people with degrees who are looking for jobs. Yeah, and because of time,
that I leave for Commissioner Sintei. She's the one who has been giving out certificates to people with. I will not say. She has the right to defend herself.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Dekker, if we're talking about certificates, you might want to remember that you are the person at the top of the chain for the data and for the digital platform. And Cedric over there was carrying the gadgets. My only work was to actually translate what was in the gadgets, not to certificates. But I think there's something. Cedric, you mentioned something about the hustler narrative.
Yes.
I would want to imagine that anyone who's actually gone to school wouldn't waste their time imagining that a hustler narrative where you're provided with immediate needs is actually going to work in the long run, because the narrative that Ruto is running and his brigade is that if, for example, in my house, I don't have water, the immediate need, the immediate need would be for me to have drinking water, actually water to use in the house. If Ruto comes here today, then he'll get me a 1,000 liter tank full of water. What happens when that water runs out? On the other hand, what Azimio is offering is a long-term project, coming up with a way of making sure that you actually have access to water for the next 10 years. So for anyone who actually cares about the future, and this goes to young people, you're talking about an age bracket of between 18 to 35. These people are exiting, they're in their 50s and their 60s. At my age right now, it means that I would want a comfortable life between now and when I'm in my 60s. Which part of the political divide is better placed to provide that? Ruto is providing immediate needs. He's talking about giving immediate incentives. If you give me 1,000 shillings today, what happens when it runs out? What Azimio is offering is actually equipping you with the skills to make sure that you can actually earn 1,000 shillings per day for the rest of your life. So in my view, I don't imagine that anyone who actually can think logically or intellectually would buy an idea of something immediate against something that is actually going to take care of the next generations for years to come.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And because of time, I'll quickly go through the comments for those who are watching us live. And there we have John Nchoko is saying, following from Narok, happy to see my boss, Commissioner Sintei.
That's my favorite guy from Narok.
Oh, wow. And we have Grace Mwita is following, nice following. Thanks, Grace, for following the show. Kevin Amzil tuned in from Nairobi, Kenya. Then who else is here? That's my producer all the way from India. As seen from Rwanda, banning Mtumba will upset the US as anticipated. I was asking whether that will upset the US. That's Don Jaka all the way from India. We have Brani is tuned in. Thank you. Then we have another question here. What difference does it make when EPZ is still there? For you, Mitumba business is just fine. Azimio can please concentrate on corruption. The money lost is more than what Mitumba ban can bring. Okay, that's JK there with his comments. Who else is tuned in? We have watching from Nairobi, Alex Onsase. Can you clarify on the Mitumba thing, please? Napia, how are at 6K per month? Was it a pretext or a valid manifesto kwa wananchi? Hey, people want this money conversation to keep going, so it doesn't stop at any given time. Who else is watching that? Tuned from Maseno, that's my sister. Lumumba is also tuned in, saying hi to Dekker. And we have Don tuned from Kochi, India, my producer. Thank you, Don. Who else here tuned in from Kisumu, Pachu? Happy to see my good friend Dekker and the most superior and youngest commissioner, Sintei. That is Cosmos there following. Thank you. Yeah, we have, who else has, there's someone here who has written a long comment. How do you convince jobless youths who have been incorporated into Mitumba business that you will later provide them jobs? And remember, Mitumba business is a network. Should Azimio not fight the youth rather and address corruption and job creation other than job distraction? Dekker, as you wind up, and and I think you have seen most of the comments. Some are really having an issue with the Mitumba question, and even one he is referring to it as destruction of jobs because it's a job that is already existing. He is trying to ask himself why remove it other than just add on it something else. Then, as you wind up, Dekker, and also inform the youth just and what they are supposed to have in mind, even as we head to the poll. What should influence their choice of president and other leaders?
Thank you. I'll start with the last questions as we end, and so that for them to respond thoroughly to it. But
you're having a problem with a bit.
Your friend, your uncle is thinking around the election. You think about your interest question. Yes, I said Masai will respond to, but also just to add that those concerns are super valid. Those worries are very valid. And even how it is presented, it is valid. I have seen a number of them. Somebody even asked around how it upsets foreign interest, etc. Of course, we know there is the AGOA agreement, which has its own clauses that we definitely.
Wow, we lost you there for a minute, Dekker. Okay, yes, we wait for him to get back. Beryl Malitz is also watching the show. Thank you, Beryl, for tuning in. We have who else? We have James Musembingala is tuned in from Kisumu. Thank you very much. And Dekker,
I don't know at what point you lost me, but yeah, I don't know at what point you lost me, but yeah, I was just saying that those concerns regarding importation of used clothes, aka Mitumba, are definitely valid. There's a huge chunk of population that are employed within that industry. And so, yes, how could those concerns be addressed vis-a-vis the balance of ensuring there's local manufacturing? So probably one approach to do is to start by building our capacity to manufacture enough, manufacture at an affordable cost, until we are at that point where we've broken even. Then now, phasing out, and I'm not using the word banning, then progressively phase out the importation of the used ones as you seamlessly bring in the ones that have been manufactured locally, so that those who have been vending these clothes, those who have been selling them at Gikomba, do not lose their space in terms of vending clothes, because then now you give them new ones to vend. So if those who've been trying to buy at the Mitumba ones because they're the ones which are affordable, then you give them new locally manufactured which are also affordable. So it can be done at a very gradual, painless process rather than an instant one where you wake up today and you say, done, no Mitumba from today, as we saw around the time for COVID, and the impact was huge. So just to mention those concerns are valid, but probably there will be probably need to employ a lot of strategies to ensure that it's a gradual, painless process that does not have impact on economy, impact on those who are employed by the industry, but has greater returns for the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dekker. And Commissioner, as your final remarks, as even we end the show, why would a young person wake up on the voting day, come August, to go and vote in Raila Odinga and Azimio ticket generally?
Well, Cedric, mine would be really, really brief about it. That one, the young person must realize that it is the people he or she elects to go to parliament or to go to the Senate or the county assembly that come up with policies that affect every single sphere of their lives. Be it how you eat, be it how you get to work in the morning from the house, be it how you dress, how you get a job. Those are the people that come up with legislations and policies to make sure that your life is comfortable or not. So that should be incentive enough to make a young person wake up in the morning to vote. But you see, the point here is we are looking at two political divides, one that is providing a future for young people and one that is actually killing it by providing immediate needs that will not sustain the young person in the rest of their working lives. So I would maybe just want to encourage young people that vote that does not seem very important is what is going to create the job bucket for you. And I just remembered something on the Mitumba issue. We are concentrating so much on something very minute without looking at it from the large scale point of view. We are talking about manufacturing. We are not simply talking about Mitumba. And like Dekker says, it's a gradual face off. Like Azimio is not going to come in as a government and immediately put a stop to Mitumba clothes. It also means that it will be easier for anyone to source locally any local products, and the people at Gikomba, the people at Toy Market or wherever they sell their Mitumba from will simply be procuring these products from a local market. But it is going to be a gradual face off of these things. The government is actually not going to, just uproot people from their, from how they make their living without giving any reason or any incentive for that. But as a young person, you're basically picking a future that is going to work for your children and for your generation, or you're going to pick a future where once someone takes government, every single thing is going to change. Every single investment you have, every resource you have as a young person or from your county, from your country, is taken up by a few elite people in the ruling class. So, wake up in the morning and actually vote for your future.
Thank you.
And vote for Raila Odinga. And anyone listening from Narok, vote for Kenta.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner. And you have talked of two political divides. Someone will stand up and tell you that why are you totally avoiding Professor Wajakoya?
Wajakoya the fifth. That would actually make the best president in this country, because it means we won't work. I'll wake up and get stoned and still be sure of getting money at the end of the day once we export.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you very much for accepting our invite and showing up for the show. William Dekker, thank you very much for a second time. I hope if we invite you at that time, you shall still show up, Dekker.
For sure, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much as well, Commissioner. And everyone else who has tuned into the show, thanks. See you next time, same place. Bye and have yourself an amazing time.
Have a good one. I'll see you in the office.